We want you to leave with new insight, real takeaways, and a stronger connection to the broader business community here in Greater Peoria. This morning's topic, Create the Culture You Want, is a great example of that. Workplace culture shapes so much of what happens inside of our organizations every day. It affects recruitment, retention, engagement, performance, and the day-to-day experience of the people who make our businesses run. Whether culture is shaped intentionally or not, it exists. And for leaders, that creates both a challenge and an opportunity. We're fortunate to have someone with us this morning who helps organizations think through those challenges every day. Our speaker, Erik Christian, Principal Consultant at HR Fit. Erik works with organizations to help them strengthen leadership, improve workplace culture, and build healthier, more effective teams. Through his work, he helps leaders turn culture from something that just happens into something they can intentionally shape and improve. We're also proud to have HR Fit as the exclusive series sponsor of the Business Growth Breakfast. Their partnership has helped us launch and grow this program, and we're grateful for their support and their shared commitment to helping businesses like yours grow and thrive. This morning, Erik will be leading us through a conversation about the role culture plays in organizational performance and how leaders can take real practical steps to create the kind of workplace they want to be part of. I know this is a topic that matters to many people in this room, and I'm confident you'll walk away with ideas you can put to use. Thank you again for being here this morning, for investing in your own growth and the growth of your organization, and for being part of this morning's conversation. Please join me in welcoming Erik Christian.
Thank you very much, Serena. Let me tell you about my friend Pete. Pete, third generation business owner. He is the one who's carrying the family legacy. Pete does everything right. They've got core values, they've got a mission statement, they've got vision statements. They cascade that out through the organization. They have quarterly meetings with all staff to talk about what's going on in the business, right? So they are walking the walk, so to speak. Pete, though, is not immune to changes in the economic environment. His business is starting to see a downturn. Things are changing, things are happening. Revenue is dipping. Pete needs his salespeople to sell, right? Pete needs them out there doing their work. Part of what they do is they go out to grocery stores, things like that, set up displays, merchandise. Salespeople get paid a bonus based on how many of these things they do, right? They got to send in some proof that they did it, and then they're eligible for this extra commission. Pete gets a call from his director of sales. He says, I think we might have an issue with one of our top salespeople. The director of sales has noticed that the picture that he got for this most recent display that was set up as proof so that the employee could get the bonus was really similar to one that had been put in a few weeks ago. And he started digging, and he noticed that there were a number of pictures that looked strikingly similar. They also have company cars, the salespeople. So I went through and did a little digging on the GPS. And that car isn't always going where those pictures were taken, supposedly. They've got an issue. This is one of their top salespeople. And now he's misrepresenting, he's lying, essentially. Defrauding the company to try to get this bonus. Pete can literally not afford to lose this person. So Pete's got some decisions to make, right? So we're going to talk about creating the culture that you want today. I'm so glad that so many of you are here. I see a lot of familiar faces here. I get this beautiful view of the river. You guys have to look at me. Sorry for that. But our topic today is create the culture you want, or live with the culture you get. Right? That's what we're going to focus on. As Savannah said a second ago, you have a culture. It's a question of whether or not it's the one that you want, the one that's good for your people, that's advancing your mission. That's what we're going to start to dig into today. Before we get too much further, you already did a great intro. You don't need to hear more about me, right? HR Fit is our company. We're an HR consulting firm. We make workplaces great through great HR. That's our mission. Another member of the team is here. Shelby's in the back there. Hopefully you saw her at the table as you came in. We've got all kinds of goodies over there. Grab some on the way out. All right, we didn't get any. Sunglasses, desk organizers, encouragements. Hopefully you see them. Please open those and share those at the table with your friends. Also at the table are a bunch of HR Fit pens, okay? And I would encourage you to grab those because we do have a few things that we're gonna work on today, all right? We only have about an hour, and we're gonna try to get as much done as we can, we should, in that hour, all right? So, away we go. Let's talk some more here about what is workplace culture. When we start talking about workplace culture, Casual Fridays, look at that guy. He's got a Hawaiian shirt, that must be a great place to work, right? Ping pong during work time? What? Sign me up. That must be wonderful. Personal favorite, the kegerator, right? Bust that on a Friday or a Tuesday, right? Whatever. These are all great things, okay? And maybe they fit your culture. Maybe they don't. But this isn't necessarily culture, right? These are things. These are things that happen in the workplace. People do them intentionally, employers do, but this might not resonate for you, right? It might not be the right fit. If you've never had Casual Fridays and you don't have a zany work atmosphere, it's really more of a buttoned up kind of place, that might kind of ring hollow. So let's talk a bit more about what workplace culture really is. And there is going to be some audience participation, because otherwise you guys listen to me for an hour. So I would ask, somebody hit me with this. What is workplace culture? When you think of that, give me a quick definition. A couple words.
Place that curates personal development and growth for like yourself, but also the ones around you.
Curates professional development, personal development for yourself and those around. So a place that's invested in the employees and their growth. I like that. That is definitely a huge component of culture. Somebody got another one for me? Yes, Andy?
Shared values and behaviors.
Shared values and behaviors. I didn't give you the slide. I don't remember giving you the presentation, right? That's a great way to think about it too. Like that, there's a lot to that. So those are good definitions, I think, and those are components. We could keep going, and I think we could get some more definitions of what culture is. This is one that I really like. This is why I was wondering if anyone, because it's speaking just to those things. You'll notice a blank up there. I did not fill that in. I would encourage you to maybe write down some notes on this piece of it. Workplace culture is the shared values, beliefs, and behaviors that shape how work gets done. It's the personality of the organization. You can see that's not my definition. It's the good folks at the Harvard Professional Executive Development site. But I love it because it's succinct and it really speaks about a couple of important things there. Two of those we've already mentioned: values, beliefs. Those are core to culture. Another word that sticks out at me in this definition, and part of why I love it, is this word how, right? The behaviors that shape how the work gets done. I think oftentimes that's a great way to think about how culture is developed. It can be what we do, but it's really more about how we do it, right? You guys have heard that. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Culture, very similar. How we approach that makes a huge difference. I should also mention, I'm going to send this presentation to Savannah when we're done, and then send it out to all of you guys. So everybody who's here, you're welcome to have it. If you want to scribble furious notes, and you want to take pictures of slides, you're welcome to, but you're going to get all this stuff. Let's talk a little bit about why workplace culture matters. It drives engagement and retention. Okay? A good workplace culture is going to have engaged employees. And then those folks are going to stick around, right? You're going to be able to keep those folks that you want. If you're investing in that professional growth and development, that's a place people want to be, right? It impacts your employer reputation and brand. This is a real thing, okay? Anybody familiar with Glassdoor? Go out there and see, right? So people put out reviews, they talk about what it's like to work. All that stuff starts to go into your employer brand. So your workplace culture is going to impact that. So that's going to help with your recruitment and retention efforts, right? You're probably thinking in your head, some companies that, man, I would love to sounds like such a cool place. That's intentional, right? They curate that, so then when they want to try to hire or recruit people, they've got that reputation working for them. It affects performance and satisfaction. Right? Your employees are engaged, the culture is working. Engaged employees are better performing employees, and satisfaction leads to retention. Here's the other thing I would say about why workplace culture matters. So your work matters, right? Whatever your organization is, there's value in what you're doing. There's a reason for what you're doing. Maybe you have a stated mission, right? You're living that every day. Maybe you're a nonprofit and you are a service-oriented organization and you have this mission that work matters. Maybe you're a private sector employer. You've got a mission to serve others, to produce something that's going to make their lives better. That's a worthwhile mission, right? That's a noble endeavor. If nothing else, this is how people are feeding their families, right? The folks who work for you. So that work matters. Work is important. And people matter. The people are the ones doing that work, okay? Think about how much time you spend in your life as an adult at work and will. So your people matter because they're investing in your organization. So if culture is how the work really gets done, how we do our work, right? It matters because it's connecting these two. Some benefits, like we're talking, this is a chamber breakfast. We've got business owners, community leaders. So let's talk more about like the ROI, really what we're talking about, culture and why this is important. Here's a stat from an article we ran across, and there are a ton of these out there that I think would be valuable if you want to look, but companies that prioritize workplace culture see a 33% increase in revenue, according to this study. From an HR standpoint, 61% of employees said they'd leave their current role for a company with a better workplace culture, right? Almost 2/3 of the employees surveyed. Like, if I could find a place that felt better and supported me, I'd be out. As a business leader, any leader in the organization where talent is hard to come by, those are important stats for us to think about. Some other benefits of a strong culture. High morale, low drama, right? When people are engaged, they want to do the work. I've heard somebody talk about an engaged employee is somebody who knows the work, has the capacity to do it, has the willingness to do it. There's another, I think it's the US model, right? Get it, want it, capacity. It's a great way to look at it. So engaged folks are like that. There's also a lot less drama, okay? HR folks tend to be in the middle of the drama, but we don't really want to. We'd much rather there not be. Strong cultures help to do that work for you. You've got more effective, resilient teams. Right? When you've got a work culture, they have shared values, they understand what they're there for and how they're supposed to do it, that makes them more effective. They're better able to rely on each other. It's time to respond to changes in the world. Reduce risk and liability, okay? I want to spend a minute on this piece, because again, I understand that we've got, especially business owners in. Sometimes when we start talking about culture, especially whenever HR starts talking, people might think like, this is great. All fluffy and wonderful, it's unicorn and rainbows out there. Culture, we want everybody to feel good. And we do, but there's a reason behind it, okay? It's good for those people. But I want to talk about the risk and liability piece. How many folks we got in here who are in like construction, manufacturing, really safety sensitive, right? Okay. High risk. Safety processes, procedures are super important, right? Your engaged employees, do they tend to follow the safety procedures? The folks who don't, are they your best employees? No, okay? So if you've got a culture that's especially safety sensitive, safety focused, and is ensuring that employees hear that constantly, and they live it, and they're being held accountable, that's gonna help you out. The other piece I wanna talk about is this broader liability, okay? Maybe you're not out there, not afraid people might fall off roofs or something like that, but you work in an office setting or whatever it may be. As HR folks, we tend to get pulled in a lot when we've got issues around harassment, discrimination, hostile work environment. I would like to say these things don't exist, but they very much do. Somebody in HR told me a long time ago, and this has stuck with me, when it comes to liability, your workplace liability is right now, okay? It's not in a month or two or whatever when the charges from the Illinois Department of Human Rights or the EEOC hit your desk. That's largely damage control, right? You're talking to an attorney, help me get through this. Sure, people are like, what about retaliation? I know about retaliation, stay with me. But by and large, it's right now, right? Now is when the thing is happening. Whatever brought on that charge or that event, it's going on at this moment, okay? So it's not something that after the fact you really will be able to prevent because it already happened. The other thing I want you to think about is in terms of that liability, it's probably not you, right? If you're here, and you're concerned about workplace culture, I'm not worried about you guys with harassment and discrimination. Okay? It's down the stream from you, right? It's out there, coworker to coworker. It's elsewhere. You can't be everywhere. Your HR folks, if you got them, they can't be everywhere. Your best leaders can't be everywhere at all times, okay? But what is everywhere at all times? Your culture. So if you've created a culture where folks understand how they're supposed to treat each other, we've got these shared values, that's gonna do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. I can't tell you, I can stand up there all day and talk all about harassment and discrimination in 6 ways from Sundays about how to avoid that, how to prevent it. You can have an employee sit through that all day. But if they're on the site and the new employee makes some crack because at their old job it was okay to make the sexist jokes, and they have a peer say, don't do that to her, don't do that. Infinitely more powerful, right? That's what you're trying to get a hold of and what you're trying to get working for. So if you need one more reason to take the culture piece seriously and to think about the ROI, you can think about it from a risk and liability standpoint. Get that working for you, because that offense of a good culture is going to be one of your best defenses when it comes to this constant work. You've seen this quote before, right? It is so true. And I say Peter F. Drucker, maybe. Peter F. Drucker is like the Mark Twain of business quotes. You know, if anything like sounded good or resonated, they just say it to him. And if you dig it, it doesn't matter. Point being, right, culture is the thing. You can have these kinds of sessions where you go through, you set the strategy, but if your culture is not ready for it, your people are not ready for it, your culture does not support it, so we need to keep that in mind. All right. Let's start to get a little bit more here into the specifics about culture. Every organization has a culture. We've said this a couple of times now. Know that you have one. Strong cultures will vary, all right? On the handout here, we're going to get into these in a second about workplace culture fundamentals, the strong fundamentals. Those fundamentals exist, but there are variations on that theme. Right? So we have some clients where it is a very buttoned-down environment, right? Things are done methodically. They're more project-based. There's not a lot of urgent stuff, but when they say something, it needs to stick and be done, and that's fine. We've got other clients that are more service-oriented and very responsive. The work, they don't know when it's coming in, right? And then when it is, they've got to move very quickly. They've got to connect with each other quickly. They've got to come up with a solution quickly. So like speed is very much valued. Both of those cultures are fine, right? Both of those cultures are great. If you went into the culture where they're kind of the slow and steady, and you start running around, they're going to be like, why are they running around like their hair's on fire? This is not working. You're stressing everybody out, and your work's suffering. You go to the other one where they have to be responsive, and someone's like, what do you think about this? I put together my plan. We're like, that's not going to work either. So these cultures are going to vary, and that's okay. The point is whether or not it's the right culture for you and your organization. I also want to talk about employee engagement. Recognize that that's going to exist on a spectrum, okay? We would love to have every employee be a full-throated ambassador of the organization, right? Their entire closet is branded company wear. They paid for most of it themselves, right? Because they love it. We're not going to get everybody there. That's fine, right? That's okay. Those folks that we do, we need to keep them close. We need to keep them nurtured because they are our champion. We got to recognize we're not going to get everybody there, and that's okay. What we can't have is folks on the other end of the spectrum. And again, I would love to just talk about all the good stuff, but if we're gonna really talk about this, let's talk about all of it. There are people out there on the other end of the spectrum, toxic employees, okay? They're trying to pull one over on the employer, they're hard to be around with their staff members, like whatever it might be. You've seen these folks, you know these folks. We have to do our best to neutralize that. We have to give them the opportunity to come on board. We have to give them an opportunity to buy into what we're doing. We have to give them the opportunity to get on the bus. If none of that works, and we're gonna have to give them the opportunity to find what's right for the mouse. Okay? And that's the reality of it. You should go through that process. You should give them an opportunity. Because number one, it's only fair. Number two, it does work. I've seen it. Right? Sometimes people just need to know really clearly what's expected, maybe get a little bit of a swift nudge, kick, and they'll respond. But other people won't. And you need to make sure that you're taking care of that. Because those folks will start to influence the people in the middle, that third group. We're kind of on board, kind of maybe not, right? We need them listening to our champions. We need to do all that we can to move them towards buying into this. So understand that will always be an issue. You won't get everybody to be that ambassador level, and that's okay. Well, you can't have toxic folks. All right, let's start to dive into some of our universal culture fundamentals. What happens in every place with a strong workplace culture? What are those fundamentals that we see, regardless of the type and style? First and foremost, leadership commitment. Leadership commitment. Leadership commitment. This begins at the top. And by top, I mean tippy top, right? If this is the CEO, if you're the CEO, and people don't see you as having engaged in this and being invested, this ain't gonna work. Save your time, okay? Until you get yourself in a place where you feel like you can. So it starts at that top. We also have to have that commitment from the next level down. Certainly the C-suite, whatever you call that, and then that next level of managers, okay? And you have to make sure this gets all the way down to those frontline folks. It can't live at headquarters. It has to go out there. Because for your frontline people who are out there, that frontline supervisor, that is the employer. Their boss is their organization. And so if that boss isn't bought into this, if that boss is shrugging this off, if that boss isn't living this the same way, there's no way it's gonna trickle down to the employees, right? There's no way they're gonna embrace it. So we gotta make sure leadership is committed, they're modeling the behavior that they need to do. We need to make sure that we've got shared values actively lived. We'll talk a second about core values and what those might be. It's less important, honestly, about specifically what they might be than it is that you have them, you talk about them as a group, and you live them, right? One of our clients, my friend Adam let me use this. He is at G&M Distributors in Galesburg, Illinois, right? And they give out these cards to all their staff. And this has got their values posted on this side, mission statement on the other side, and everybody gets one of these. He actually said, I gotta get you a new one, we updated it, which is even better. But I love this because this is part of that actively living. Now, does this card guarantee that everybody's gonna live these values? It does not, right? It's more the act of putting it into their hands. It's more the act of putting it out there, right? And reinforcing it. It's one more way that they reinforce it. If you wanna do something similar, that's awesome. If you don't, that's awesome, right? This is just an idea. The point is, they're trying to actively live those values, and that's the way that they're doing it. If it's just words on a wall that you talk about at the quarterly meeting, right? Or the annual meeting, I should say. If you never really do anything with it, that's gonna start to ring hollow to folks. That's not gonna build the culture that you really want. Shared values actively lived, trust-based relationships. The employees have to trust each other. They have to trust that I can rely upon my coworker to do their work. I have to trust that my coworker has my best interests at heart, just like I have theirs. Okay? Especially important for leaders, crucial for leaders. If they don't trust you, right? Number one, you're gonna have a hard time leading them. Number two, all this culture stuff is not. They don't trust and respect. So they have to trust what you do. They have to trust that you are someone worth following. We could have a whole other session. Maybe we'll next year. But point is, for the leaders, understand that. They have to have these trust-based relationships, and they're really looking to you. They've got clear communication norms. And not just clear communication, right? That's, hey, I need this done, I need it by Wednesday, it needs to be X, Y, Z, let me know if questions. But that's clear communication, that's great. I'm talking about for the sticky stuff, all right? That's where you earn it as a leader, and that's the hard part about culture. I'm talking about when these two employees have gotten to the point where they disagree with each other so much, we can't have them in the same room, right? I'm talking about these communication norms where people are working around other people, and it's creating incredible inefficiencies in mass because these two don't know how to get along with each other. I'm talking about if you've got a leader who is not creating the environment that you want, how are you going to communicate with that person? So they've got clear communication norms of how they might address this, how they will work with it. If there's a problem, what do? Assume best intentions. We're going to go to the person. We've been trained on the right language to use. That's where you come in as leaders. You have to show them how to do this. You need to give them the tools to do this in order to be successful. Some folks, this comes very naturally. Other folks, it does not. And still others just might not know what to do because they've never experienced this, okay? That's your job as the leader to help them understand how to work through this. They are adaptable. Employers with good culture are adaptable, right? Your core values are core values for a reason. Like, that's who we are, that's what we believe. And that's kind of our North Star. That's what guides us through turbulent waters that just come through life work. We need to be able to be adaptable, and actually having fixed values like that helps us do that. Recognition and feedback. So they recognize their employees and they listen to them. You do not have to do every single thing that an employee drops in the suggestion box, right? That's okay. But you need to have some kind of feedback. What is that? Is there a suggestion box? More about, do you have some kind of way for them to submit feedback? Open door policy, is it actually used, right? I'll talk in a second here about some other ways that you can gather that feedback. But they listen to the employees. They get that employee input, and they recognize them for superior performance and for good. Catch them doing something good, right? It's good to recognize superior performance. Top salesperson of the month, that's awesome. That's good. That's what that person is there to do. Even more powerful is if you can recognize somebody for living our values. This person went out of their way for this customer. We're a nonprofit. This person was in distress, this client, and our employee dropped everything that they did and they went the extra mile to help. Recognize that, right? Because that tells everybody else what you have. So those are our culture fundamentals. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we actually create that culture that we want, and then we're going to start doing a little bit of work, so prepare yourself. When it's time to create the culture that you want, a few things to think about. Be intentional. Okay, like we said, it exists. It's a matter of whether or not it's what you want. Think about what that culture is that you want, and do this kind of stuff on purpose. That's the first thing to think of. Be intentional about how you're doing it. Engage your employees. Now, engage employees can mean a lot of different things. Oftentimes, it'll depend upon employer size and type and whatever it is that you your type of work. If you're a smaller organization, maybe engaging the employees is that, like, you and your assistant manager give this a lot of hard thought, and then you have a meeting where you share some of these ideas with these folks, get their input, right? And you say, thanks, guys, and then you set it and off you go. That's okay to engage your employees that way. Maybe you're a larger employer and you have a cultural committee, right? And you have people who are tasked with this kind of work. This is what they do as part of their job. Those can be wonderful things. All kinds of things in between. But you have to have employees a part of this. This can't be something that just happens to them, right? You need to integrate them into this and get that buy-in. This needs to be something that happens with them. Invest in your leaders. Keep talking about leaders? Because this part is so crucial. I've already said all those different things about the importance of leadership to the culture. Do your leaders have the tools, do they have the capabilities to actually make this stuff happen like you want? All right? I don't know any leader who's gone into this and saying, oh man, I can't wait till I collect a big paycheck and then flame out in 3 months. Yeah, that'll be great. They don't go in there wanting to fail. Oftentimes when leaders fail, I have found, is it's because either they didn't get clear direction about what was expected of them. They weren't given the tools to succeed, right? Classic where you bring up the best subject matter expert, right? They made the best widgets in the world, so we're gonna keep them in charge of the whole widget department. That's different. Now you're leading people making the widgets as opposed to cranking out the best widgets in the world. So they weren't given the best tools to succeed. And then sometimes it is just not the best fit, and that's okay too. But you need to invest in those leaders or else this stuff won't get off the ground. Other things to consider when we create this culture that we want. We need to encourage open dialogue. So you should have an open door policy, right? That doesn't mean that everybody can interrupt you every single moment of every day, but you need to have some way that you're getting their feedback and you're engaging with them. You also need to make sure that you're able to get that feedback and put it to use. We'll talk about that in a second. Align policies and practices with your core values. Now, I'm an HR person, okay? So I like policies, I like procedures. We can over-engineer those, but you need those. I mentioned a second, do we have construction folks in here? Do we have anybody who builds stuff? All right, take a swing at it. You're gonna build a house. You got the site, you dug the hole, you're gonna actually start to build a house. What's the first thing you do? Lay the foundation. Thank you, sir. That's exactly it. You can't build the walls. You can't hang stuff on those walls. You can't look out your beautiful windows if you don't have a solid foundation. You need a solid foundation. You need a good sound structure to build all that around. Policies, procedures, practices, that's what does that, okay? They are not restricting you. Do them right, they should not restrict you. They are actually allowing you to scale this thing up and turn it into what you want, okay? Because if your way of making sure everybody does what they're supposed to is that you go around everybody and make sure that they do what they're supposed to, man, you're not gonna last long. Your organization's not gonna last long. So you've gotta have these, and that's a huge tool for your leaders, right? They need something, right? To be able to hold folks accountable in the best ways. So make sure that you've got policies and practices, procedures, and make sure those align to your core values. Why do you have that? PTO is a great example. I mean, we could talk all kinds of ways about how to do PTO. We have paid leave, we have PTO, we have personal time, we have sick leave. We let plow it do all the heavy lifting. We don't even touch it. We award it, we accrue it. We don't have to. Any of those are great, right? But you've got to figure out which one fits you and your culture and what you're trying to incent. So think through those things. Make sure they're in place and aligning with the core values. All right, let me share one other thing for you here in terms of why this workplace really matters, the culture really matters. Another way for you to think about it. There are two fish, young fish swimming along. Older fish comes this way. Says, hey guys, how's the water? One fish says, great. Old fish swims by. The other young fish says, what's water? That's another way to think about culture. Like, that is the water that you swim. It just is. It's around you. It is there every day. Is that the water you want to be in, right? Or you can do something to change it, right? You're going to move out of that. You're going to clean it up, whatever it might be. I'd encourage you to look at David Foster Wallace's "This Is Water" commencement speech. It's fantastic. So I can't claim that. That's another way to think about the culture. All right. Here's our key takeaways. Culture is the foundation of your work. You already have a workplace culture. You can and should influence that culture. I'm going to pause real quick. We've got some stuff that we're going to do. So I want to make sure that you guys all get some value from it. Thoughts, questions so far on what we've covered? Sir?
Eric, I think that when you talk about being intentional, that with regards to mission and core values, how many of us actually start our leadership meetings, especially if we're gonna make business that affect culture or employees? And do we bring that card out, so to speak, and say, all right, how are we gonna align this and make sure that it's in keeping with the values and the mission of the organization? Make sure we're really intentional about what we're doing.
I think that's a great point. And I know there are organizations that we've worked with where on those leadership team agendas, those core values are at the top. Like right above the data, anything else. Core values, they'll also have maybe those communication norms, other things like that for that reason, because that's a great point. That helps you be intentional. There's lots of little things you can do like that. That was another thing. Yes?
Where I work, we just did strategic planning, and we've got like 10 core values. Is there like an optimal amount that you can focus on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've really seen that all over the place. If you guys look out there, you may too. Where some places are like, we have 2 core values, that's it. And other places will get larger. I think 10's probably on the outside, not too many, but I don't know that I'd want too many more than that, because stuff can get lost in there, right? Like you can start to lose the resonance. But usually I'll see them, they're somewhere in that like 3 to 6. Okay, so a couple of things I want you guys to think about here. And please note, I am watching our time. I've learned a great way to make people who like you, maybe not like you so much anymore, is to keep them past the time. We will be done at 9:30. I love this quote. If anybody's ever heard of Sun Tzu, an ancient Chinese military strategist, and I don't understand most of what he said, like I'll be honest, so please don't think so highly of him. But I love this quote. Every battle is won before it is ever fought. It talks about the importance of planning, back to being intentional. Okay? You should think about this and think about how you're going to go about it, especially if you're in a leadership position. If you start running off to the rest of the team and be like, culture's the best thing ever, here's what we're going to do, let's start talking about it. What are our core values? You'll probably get some feedback, right? You get some info. But then they'll be like, what next, boss? You'll be like, oh. We don't want that for you, all right? So we should think kind of further down the road. Here's a model that I tend to like to use. PDSA, you guys have probably heard this before. It's a great continuous improvement. Plan, do, study, act. You figure out what you're gonna do, you do it, you study it, and then you make changes based upon what you learn, okay? Most folks, myself included, they wanna jump right to do, right? Let's get in there and make this thing happen. I would encourage you to spend way more time on the plan. Way more time on planning. And make sure you do the studying. That's the other thing that folks tend not to like to really do, is do that studying. Because it's not as much fun. All right, so here's what we would do. If I were going to engage in a cultural transformation initiative, if I was going to try to strengthen this, I'd start high level and I'd look at these really 5 questions. What is your organizational culture now? What do you want it to be? That's the ideal state. How will you get it there? How will you know if it worked? And then how will you improve? There are a number of cultural change models out there. I'll throw a couple up there. Maybe you've seen some of these. Lewin's change model, Unfreeze, change, freeze. Cotter, there's like 8 steps. There's a book called Nudge where you just kind of keep moving folks forward. So those are all great cultural change models, okay? That's more in the do section. If you really want to get into the nitty gritty, those are some things to check out. We're going to keep it higher level. The other one that I want to throw out there, okay? You can go in there right now and be like, how do I change the culture in my organization? And ChatGPT or Copilot will spit out a bunch of stuff, and it'll be good. I mean, I use AI all the time. We should not pretend it's not a thing. So that'll have all kinds of great information, okay? AI is not you. AI doesn't work in your organization. AI is not walking around. So that's just info, but you cannot just rely upon that. I also would not let AI try to do the heavy employee engagement lifting for you, okay? That's gonna start to work against you if our core values are such that we wanna really engage employees. Maybe use a component of that, but you should not just rely on it. All right, so what is your organizational culture right now? So on the back of your handout, I want you to do a little pre-work. I'll just set a quick timer for a few minutes here. But think about, how would you define your current culture in your organization and why? Just a few minutes. Think about 30 more seconds. Okay, feel free to keep writing. If we were doing this like a workshop style, we might go around the room, share a little bit, that kind of stuff. Today, I just kind of want to get you guys to prime the pump here, be thinking about how this might work. There's a microphone. Think about how this might work for your organization, okay? So we've talked about how we might define our current culture. Now we're going to start to think about, how do you want it to be? So you can see there's a next phase there, and it starts to talk about your ideal state. What do you want the culture to be? Go ahead and start to fill that in. Some things to think about when it comes to what you want it to be. These core values are so important. These should be stated and these should be talked about. At HR Fit, our core values are that we're positive thinking, we're solution oriented, we're client focused. We do those three things. If that's how we live, we're good. It's at the front of our handbook. Make sure that we talk about that. Not as much as we should. I'm not perfect either, right? But those core values are so important. Hopefully you have them and you can start using them. If you don't have them, I would encourage you as a leadership team to start talking about that and put that down. Here's the wonderful thing about core values. You will not mess this up. Like, I promise you, it's almost impossible. Because you're gonna pick good things, okay? And all those good things are going to help you advance. Now down the road, you may decide, maybe we need to tweak these. Maybe 10 was too many. Maybe we want 6. Maybe 2 was too few. It was too few. Maybe we want 4 or something, all right? But you're gonna pick good things that are gonna put you on the path. It's okay to tweak those down the road, but don't worry about picking the wrong ones necessarily. So think about what your culture should be, and I'm going to give you another minute to complete that piece of it. Make sure you've got your responses. Okay, I want to keep us moving. Make sure you write that down and think about that. And then you come back to it in just a second. Item number 3, how will you get it there, right? Emphasis on you. You're in a leadership position, especially. There can be other things even as somebody who's maybe not in that C-suite role that they can do. I want to introduce you to Marcus Aurelius. Anybody ever heard of Marcus Aurelius? Got some Stoicism fans in here? That's good. So he wrote a foundational text. It's really just his diary, right? It was not meant for the world to see it. And the fact that we have it 2,000 years later is kind of a miracle. I would encourage you to read Meditations. It's kind of eye-opening that this man who is literally in charge of the greatest empire in the history of the world was facing the same things you are. He has entries in there about how important it is to make yourself get out of bed when it's so nice and warm under the covers. Okay. So one thing I love about it though, is this is one line that has stuck with me that he wrote in there. To stand up straight, not straightened. Stand up straight, not straightened. As a leader, this should be coming from you, right? Stand up straight metaphorically. Not have it be imposed by someone else. The reason I put that in there is because if you're going to be the one who is leading the way and demonstrating, this is going to have to come from you. Because the reality is, you are these values when you're in the leadership. Think about it that way. If our value is integrity and transparency, right, then I need to be transparent. I need to lead and act with integrity, especially when there aren't a bunch of eyeballs. That's what makes that. So understand that you are those core values. So I would start with you before you really go down this whole path of trying to engage in something. If you're in a leadership role, you want to try to make this happen in your organization. This is going to take some things out of you. You do it right. Do whatever you got to do to make sure you're in a place of strength. So we're going to need to set and maintain the expectations for the organization. If you're a leader, this is about the most important thing that I think. For my money, like, this is management. This is leadership. Telling people what it is that you expect of them and then holding them accountable in the right way. And that's where you earn it. It's easy to tell them what you want. It's a lot harder to make sure that everybody gets that done and that you do it in a way that's not heavy-handed, authoritarian. So that's the most important thing that I would say. You also need to understand that these are being set and reinforced every day. Back to the point where you need to live those values. You are those values. Recognize that. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides here, and I admittedly am going to move through those a little quickly. But I made sure to put those in the handout because I want you to see them. So when you have them later, you can look at these and say, okay, what are the steps that I would go through in this? And I'll hit a couple of the highlights as we start to close. I would encourage you to think about the context here. Why are you crafting this strategy? Why are you even wanting to go about and impact the culture of your organization? And then you need to think about how prepared is my organization to actually execute this strategy, to undergo this endeavor, okay? Because they may not be there yet. That's okay. But you need to think about when will they be there? What do they need to get there? You know, I want to put in this cultural transformation strategy, but my managers are all brand spanking new and they have never had management training, okay? That's probably going to be a pretty heavy lift for them, right? To put all this kind of stuff in place. I would make sure that those folks are ready. Or maybe it's just been a lot of chaos lately. You make sure that the timing is right for something like this. But there are little things that you can do in how you live every day. Identify the stakeholders in your organization that you need to make sure you're paying special attention to. You should engage all those employees, but make sure that you know who the stakeholders are. C-suite, managers, employees, your applicants, right? We're talking employer brand. What does it look like to you? Vendors that are out there. I would do, this is a practical tip for you, you need to gather some information about what our workplace is like. Number of ways to do that. Good old-fashioned surveys, engagement surveys. Maybe they're quantitative, maybe they're qualitative, and you're listening. You can do interviews. I'm a big fan of stay interviews, if anybody's done those. Exit interviews, like they're gone. The info's gone. You know, I wish I would have known this earlier. Well, do that. Do a stay interview. Talk to them before about, how's this going? Get that kind of information. Make sure that you're engaging staffs in different ways you can do that. Surveys, town halls, listening sessions. Maybe you've got that culture committee. You need to reflect on that. What is that telling you? And you need to keep that info handy. Right? Then you're going to identify whatever gaps are out there Where are we now? Where do we want to get? What is the staff telling us that they need? Be thinking about how to get yourselves there. Prioritize your projects, and I would encourage you to look for quick wins and low-hanging fruit. If employees are saying, like, we need management training, do some management training. If employees are saying, I don't think our attendance policy works, it's very confusing, I got written up, and I don't think I should have, look at that policy. Start to figure out how that stuff works or doesn't. I'm a fan of SMART goals. I would use some SMART goals in there. Make sure you're managing the expectations for everybody, right, in terms of this whole process. Under promise, over deliver. So, we're still in the planning stages of all this. How will we know if all this worked? You need to make sure that you build in some metrics as you're starting to do this. So when we're doing this employee engagement survey, how do we know whether or not employees are engaged? How do we know if whatever we put into place is actually working? Retention's a good one. Turnover, maybe you're able to track actually employee performance through whatever tool you use. And then think about how you will end up improving, okay? So that's our whole model. We do all the planning, put that thing into place, right? That would be the next place. We work our plan, we study what happened, and then we act. When you're done putting something new in terms of cultural improvement, celebrate those successes. Employees, folks don't do this too much. Like, we just get done and we move on to the next thing. Take a minute, celebrate with your employees, recognize that something good happened. Make those adjustments that you might need to encourage that you have success. And then update that plan based on what you learned, okay? Avoid these kinds of pitfalls, especially this one about doing too much, right? Do what they say in your feedback surveys that you should do. I would not try to do too much. I would make sure that we're doing just bits of things that will really help us out. Okay. As we close, I got two things. One is that we're gonna finish here with, I'm gonna ask you to write down 3 things that you will do in the next 2 weeks to try to impact the culture of your organization. While you think about that, you've probably been sitting here for the last hour saying, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. Remember Pete? That was a long time ago. Pete's sitting there and he has to figure out what it is that he's doing. Pete has a very strong inclination to take the easy route. Maybe call this person in and say, hey, look, don't do this. But Pete knows that number one, that's not their values, right? He needs to hold this person accountable. Number two, the reality is that if now the director of sales knows this, other employees probably know, right? The odds that other employees don't know that Pete's going off to who knows where during the day are slim if he's been doing this for folks know. So when you start to look at it this way, I think Pete really understood what he had. So they did the hard thing. They brought that employee in, they confronted him, and he didn't work there. Not that I want to see bad things happen to people, but he terminated himself. The important thing is Pete did the hard thing. Life went on, all right? They continued to have sales. This is about 2 years ago. They're doing okay, all right? The world did not end. The business still exists. And he heard from his leadership team about how that was the right move, right? So he did the right thing. He strengthened his core values. And it's paying off for him as he's engaged his folks in this program. Take 2 more seconds here. Write down those 3 things that you're gonna do in the next, we'll say month, I'll give you a month. What are 3 things you're gonna do here in the next month to try to create the culture that you want at your organization? Hopefully you've got 3 things, or at least off and running. I promised I wouldn't keep you, so I'm not gonna. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions as we start to wrap this up? Yes?
In the spirit of creating a positive culture, just a reminder to everyone that today is Administrative Professionals Day, so show your appreciation to your employees.
Thank you very much, and happy Administrative Professionals Day. Other thoughts or questions as we wrap up? Yes?
How do we get, staffing issues are just ongoing and don't seem to be getting any better? I work for a nonprofit. For the employees that want to improve workplace culture, how do we get them involved in wanting to help even though they're like spread completely thin?
So how do you encourage those good employees, and how do you pull them into this culture thing?
Yeah.
And minimize the other issues that you're having?
Yeah, just like getting more people involved even though like everybody's kind of
Yeah.
spread thin. Like,
Yeah, so one thing that can, I hear you saying, that one thing that can help with that is if you got a small staff. I've seen leadership take on some of the heavy lifting there, and so maybe you don't like involve everybody in the creation, because that's very time consuming, and maybe instead you do some of the heavy lifting, the leader does, whoever. And then you've got those champions that you want to engage, and you get their reactions. You know, maybe you're able to do like a short meeting, you buy them breakfast, you go off site for lunch or something, you know, and say, here's what we're thinking, here's what we're doing, here's our plan, what do you think about this? You know, and you're more kind of getting their reactions, and then you're doing the heavy lifting, because that's where they get bogged down. Is the culture committee thing is awesome, that's good, it's time consuming, right? And sometimes it can work against you, because people are like, I already have a job, this is gonna be another job. So that's one tip, but yeah, that's a challenge.
I have a question. So, as a part of being a leader, you have to be decisive, right? You need to hold people accountable to their tasks, to their races, right? And then you have to take the right decision that aligns with your strategy, right? But every now and then we see certain employees who have ideas, right? But a part of their nature or their personality is they want those ideas to be end all be all. If it's not their way, then it's not idea, right? And yet, if you make decisions for them in the leadership role, then to them that's the bad culture, because you're not taking their input to some views. What would you recommend?
Yeah, that's the employee who's maybe engaged in not quite the right way, that might not quite be aligned, is kind of what so one way to describe it. So I think a couple of things. If you've got the core values, you get to lean on those, right? If you've got any kind of strategic plan, you get to lean on that. Say, here's what this is. We can take your suggestions into consideration. You can really talk and unpack that. If it's something that really won't work for an operational reason, tell them, you know, and say like, I hear what you're saying, that would be great if we could institute unlimited PTO, right? But that just, we can't do it because we've done it. Make sure that you keep engaging them, but at a certain point, you may have to just be straight with them too, and say, you know, look, appreciate the feedback, right? But you gotta understand that, number one, there's constraints. Secondly, if we can't do what you want, we still have to operate this way. Because what I'm hearing you say is there starts to be behavior issues, right? They don't like that. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, people don't get to make life hard for other people, right? So whether it's they make life hard and they're hard to work with because management didn't take their suggestions, or they're the top salesperson and they're just hell on wheels to deal with everybody else. They don't get to do that, right? So if there's behavior issues, it doesn't matter what the other thing is that kind of stem that. I'd address those behavior issues. And those core values help you do that. Come back and say, you're not being respectful, you know, whatever it is, hold them accountable. That's what I would do. Gang, I appreciate the time that you have spent here this morning with us. It's been wonderful. Thank you for listening to us and attending. Grab some other stuff on the way out, and we hope to see you at the next one.